Ladies and gentlemen, there is a profound difference between having a cold heart and having a calm mind. Many of you listening today, you know exactly what it feels like to be the emotional anchor for everyone in your life. You see, you are the one people turn to when their world is falling apart, the one who listens until your own soul feels heavy, and the one who absorbs the shadows of others just to help them find a little light. This is the empathic burden, the silent, weightless tax we pay, for being capable of deep feeling. But lately, you might notice a growing sense of exhaustion. You feel brittle, perhaps even resentful. It is easy to mistake this fatigue for a loss of kindness, to feel that you are becoming cold. However, the truth is far more nuanced. Your current exhaustion, it does not stem from a lack of love. It stems from a lack of boundaries. You have been pouring from an empty cup, believing that to stop pouring is to stop caring. You see, we often equate compassion with shared suffering, assuming that if we don't feel the other person's pain as our own, we are somehow failing them. But suffering alongside someone does not cut the pain in half. It simply doubles the misery in the room. To truly help and to truly survive, you must learn to step into the sanctuary of a calm mind. In this space, you can witness the storm without being swept away by the wind. Intrigued, it is here that we find a startling psychological paradox. True, sustainable compassion actually requires a level of detachment that most people mistake for coldness. It is the ability to hold space for someone without losing yourself in their darkness. Today, we are going to explore how building these mental walls is not an act of isolation, but the ultimate act of self-preservation. With finality, we are going to learn how to keep your heart soft while making your mind a fortress. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a heavy thing to carry a world that was never actually meant to rest upon your shoulders. We often speak of stress in terms of deadlines and finances. But you see, there is a far more exhausting burden that remains largely invisible: the weight of emotional labor. For many of you listening, especially those who have been socialized to be the nurturers, the fixers, and the emotional anchors of your social circles, this weight is constant. You have been taught, perhaps quite subtly, that your value is measured by how well you can anticipate the needs of others and how effectively you can soothe their storms. This brings us to a concept we must dismantle if we are to find peace: emotional responsibility. With realization, it is the subconscious belief that you are the architect of another person's happiness. When a partner is moody, you feel it is your job to lift them up. When a friend is struggling, you feel a personal failure if you cannot provide the perfect solution. In these moments, you aren't just caring for them, you are caring as them, absorbing their frequencies until your own signal is lost. You become a sponge for the world's grief, and eventually, a sponge can hold no wool. But here is the psychological truth we often ignore. When you take responsibility for emotions that are not yours, you aren't actually helping. Firmly, you are merely becoming a martyr for a cause you cannot win. This is where the burnout begins, not from working too hard, but from feeling too much for people who aren't doing the emotional work themselves. Somber. It creates a slow-growing resentment, a quiet bitterness that poisons the very compassion you take pride in. Whispering. You find yourself exhausted, wondering why you have so much love to give, yet feel so utterly empty inside. We must ask ourselves, if you are not the architect of their joy, and if you are not the fixer of their broken pieces, then what is your true role in their lives? If you step back from the helm of their emotional ship, will it sink? Or will you finally discover the one person you were actually meant to save? This leads us to a shift in perspective that changes everything. Because once you realize what you aren't responsible for, you finally have the space to see what you've been neglecting all along. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a common misconception in our society that the depth of our love is somehow measured by the height of our anxiety. We have been conditioned to believe that if we aren't losing sleep over someone else's choices, well, we are somehow cold or indifferent. But this is where we must draw a line in the sand and truly embrace a powerful paradigm shift. For too long, many of you have acted as the architect of other people's lives. Empathetic. You spend your emotional currency trying to design their happiness, drafting blueprints for their success, and frantically trying to repair their structural flaws. You feel a heavy sense of responsibility, believing that if you stop holding the tools, their entire world will crumble. But there is a profound exhaustion that comes with trying to build a house on someone else's land. The shift happens, you see, when you decide to stop being the architect and start being the witness. To be a witness is to practice radical compassion. Slowly. It is the ability to stand beside someone in their darkest hour, to offer your presence and your heart without feeling the need to take the steering wheel of their life. Honoring. When you are a witness, you honor their journey. Philosophical. You recognize that their soul has its own lessons to learn, its own burdens to carry, and its own triumphs to claim. Real love is a gift of presence, whereas attachment, well, it's a tether of control. When we are attached, we are reactive. If they fail, we feel like failures. If they are sad, we demand they be happy so that we can feel at peace. But when we move to a place of witnessing, we realize that we can care for someone deeply without carrying them. We understand that we are a companion to their life, not the project manager of their soul. This redefines everything. It allows you to breathe again. It transforms love from a heavy, exhausting project into a light, sustaining presence. You are no longer responsible for the outcome of their life. You are only responsible for the quality of your own character while you walk beside them.
However, stepping out of the architect role creates a sudden, jarring silence. When you stop obsessing over their blueprints, you are left standing in the middle of your own unfinished life. And that whispers us to a question that most of us are, honestly, too afraid to answer. If your hands are no longer full with their problems, what exactly are you supposed to do with all that empty space? Because as it turns out, the hardest person to witness isn't someone else. It's the person staring back at you in the mirror. Ladies and gentlemen, when we face that reflection in the mirror, we realize something quite profound. We realize that the chaos of others has often served as, well, a convenient distraction from our own growth. Measured. To reclaim our peace, we need a strategy, a protocol that protects our energy without, hardening our hearts. We must learn to move from being the reactive architect of everyone else's life to being the conscious guardian of our own. The first pillar of this protocol is the 24-hour observation rule. In our hyper-connected world, we've been conditioned to react instantly. When a friend texts with a crisis, or a family member projects their frustration onto you, your nervous system flares. Empathetically, you want to fix it, right? You want to soothe the friction because their discomfort feels like
your responsibility. But for the next 24 hours, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to do something radical. Observe. Watch the problem without touching it. Observe your own frantic urge to intervene by waiting a full day before you offer a solution or a shoulder. You see, you allow the initial emotional storm to pass. More importantly, you break the impulse to fix. You give the situation space to settle on its own, and you give yourself the dignity of a choice, rather than a reflex. Once you've mastered the pause, it is time to perform an internal real estate audit. Your mind is the most valuable property you will ever own, and yet, we often let the wrong people live there for free. Ask yourself, is this person paying rent in my mind through mutual respect? Or are they squatting in my peace? If someone is consuming your thoughts, keeping you awake at night, and draining your focus without contributing anything to your well-being, they are squatting. Recognizing this doesn't mean you stop loving them. Not at all. It means you realize you are mismanaging your own resources. You cannot build a sanctuary if the grounds are constantly being trampled by those who don't respect the gates. Finally, we implement the most difficult yet most liberating part of the protocol: loving detachment. This is the bridge between caring and overextending. It is the moment you look at someone you deeply care for and silently, or even explicitly say, I love you, but I trust your ability to handle your own struggle. Ladies and gentlemen, this shift is profound. When you stop trying to carry their weight, you aren't abandoning them. You are actually returning their strength to them. You are acknowledging that they are capable, resilient human beings who need their own challenges to grow. You keep your heart open, but you pull your hands back. You remain a witness to their journey, but you stop being the vehicle for it.
But as we begin to clear this mental real estate and set these boundaries, a new and uncomfortable challenge emerges. When you stop being the person who fixes everything, the people around you will notice. And they won't always react with the gratitude you might expect. In fact, some might call you cold or even selfish. This leads us to a delicate crossroads. How do you handle the crushing guilt that comes when the world starts demanding the old you back? Because the real test of your peace isn't how you feel when you're alone. It's how you stand your ground when the people you love start pushing against the new walls you've built. Ladies and gentlemen, this is where we finally arrive at the most profound realization of this entire journey, what we call the return to grace. It is the understanding that protecting your energy is not an act of war against those you love, but rather a quiet, a truly necessary act of love for yourself. So many of us fear that by setting boundaries, we are somehow becoming cold or unfeeling, right? But the truth is far more elegant. True emotional mastery is the ability to live with a heart that remains open to the world, while keeping a mind that is vigilantly guarded by wisdom. You see, you are not building a wall to keep people out. You are building a sanctuary so that your inner light isn't extinguished by the winds of everyone else's chaos. When you finally stop trying to fix every problem and carry every burden, something truly miraculous happens. You give the people in your life the greatest gift possible. I mean, the dignity of their own growth. By stepping back, you allow them to face their own challenges and discover their own strength. You stop being the crutch that prevents them from learning how to walk on their own. Ladies and gentlemen, true peace is found when we stop trying to be the hero of everyone's story and finally commit to being the master of our own. You were never meant to be the savior of a world that refuses
refuses to save itself. You were meant to be the steward of your own soul. As you move forward from today, I invite you to share your own journey toward peace in the comments below. Have you found the courage to let go